And we're back. We're live. Newest edition of Caught Stealing here at Fantasy Alarm, the fantasy baseball podcast here at fantasyalarm.com. I'm Colby Conway at Colby R. Conway. With me, as always, Matt Selz at the Selzman over on X. Matt, we're going to talk about some spring training headlines. I'm glad that my timeline is with, actual highlights from games that are replaying in this calendar year. And we're past some of the guys are showing up with this or best shape of their life. We're actually seeing the product on the field. But first, I want to give you I'll give you 23 seconds to shout you out and give yourselves a highlight for your dominance on Sunday around the track.
Well, thank you. It is great to have baseball back in the timeline, be able to watch actual games happening on MLB.TV. But yes, we are recording this Sunday evening. It is approximately an hour after the greatest NASCAR race of all time ended. I say it in hyperbole. It was pretty awesome, though. The race at Atlanta, third closest finished in the history of the sport. I hit the winner, Daniel Suarez, at 35-1. So pretty pumped about that. The overall race was fantastic. But so is having baseball in my timeline. It's been fantastic watching bombs. I watched an inside the park home run today in spring training.
Little soccer action in that one.
Yeah. Bicycle kicked it by the outfielder there.
So never want to see that. You never want to see that.
Not unless you're watching like EPL like I was this morning. Right. So yes. Good day all around. And I got to see Mackenzie Gore on the mound for the Nats. Looked awesome. So let's go.
And didn't James Wood hit like his 17th home run of the spring too?
He did. He's had 4 at-bats and hit 7 home runs. He's going Chuck Norris on this.
There you go.
The dude, man, that is a pretty swing. That is oh man, that's a very pretty swing from James Wood. He's not coming up yet. They're gonna slow roll this, but be excited when he does come up because those balls go a long way.
And I mentioned your I don't even know what you call it anymore. I'd say Twitter username, but it's now X. So your X username at the Selzman. Go check it out to see not just the Suarez pick that won it, but I believe you had 3 other picks as well that all hit.
Yeah, I had Suarez top 10, which obviously if he wins, finishes top 10. So that
naturally
hit. Daniel Suarez versus Ty Gibbs. Again, he won, so he beat Ty Gibbs.
Yeah.
Ryan Blaney, top 10. So that hit. My co-host in the Grill vs. Grill shorts hit his bet of Ross Chastain top 10. So we were all over this race, as bonkers as it was. We had it pretty well covered, and we won people some money in DFS too. So pretty good weekend there. And I'm talking baseball on X too.
There you go. FantasyAlarm.com. That's where you can get Matt's NASCAR dominance, become an all-pro subscriber today, or just check out our YouTube because I do believe the short or Grill vs. Grill was posted there, so you could have got some picks there. So
as well as the podcast where I gave out the Daniel Suarez top 10 pick too.
As well as the podcast, as well as this podcast. So make sure you like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe, all that good stuff that you're supposed to do with YouTube. But Matt, I'll tell you this. I was up pretty late last night. I was playing Fortnite. I'm back on the grind again. After taking a little bit of time off, I'm back playing some Fortnite. And I woke up to the news this morning. I was up late, but I wasn't up late enough for the Cody Bellinger news, signing with the Cubs. It's one of those things. I don't know if it's a Scott Boras thing. I don't know what the whole deal was, but from a fantasy perspective, you have to be thrilled Bellinger's going back to the Windy City at Wrigley after a phenomenal 2023 season. And for him, if he's 20, I think he's like 28 or 27 right now. He's one of those 2 ages, but he's got opt-outs after each year of the deal. So he's going to basically get free agency a couple more times here in his 20s. But what did you make of the deal overall?
First of all, thanks, Lisa. You know who you are. You broke it on Twitter like 14 hours before anybody else knew it was happening. And thanks, Obvious Shirts, for turning that into a shirt already that Jeff Passan has ordered 2 of. So props to you there, Passan. I don't know why that deal took so long to come together. B, why it was released at 2:15 in the morning Central Time. I don't know. But in general, I really do like this for the Cubs. This was the bat everybody wanted back in the heart of their lineup since basically last season, right? Like they don't understand why this deal couldn't be done towards the end of last year. He was clearly a good fit. He loves Chicago. Stadium loves him. Fans love him. He did quite well. But my question is this: is he playing first base all the time? Or is he playing center field all the time? Because
Yeah.
he's a gold glove center fielder, right?
Mhm.
He's phenomenal. They do have a young, highly talented defensive center fielder coming
With
up
blue hair.
today with blue hair. Kind of looks like a superhero villain with the blue hair a little bit.
I kind of love it though. I'm not gonna lie.
I do kind of like it. Pete Crow-Armstrong has, he's phenomenally gifted defensively, and he can help you. He's a 5-tool guy, uh, from the batter's box. But the question is, if you play Bellinger in center field, where are you playing PCA?
Right.
Okay, because he's not going to play. You're not. I don't think you're DHing him, right?
Mhm. Probably not.
Unless you play PCA in left field and you DH Ian Happ, right? And if you're playing Bellinger at first base, then are you playing Michael Bush at third base, or are you playing Christopher Morel at third base, and you're DHing one of them because their bat deserves to be in the like? It's all sorts of fun for an actual real life lineup because there's a
Mhm.
whole lot of options, but for fantasy, it got a little more complicated, right? So
Poor Michael Bush.
I I mean, right? He gets out of LA where he was blocked and buried, and that's why he's 25 and just now coming up.
Mhm.
And then he thinks he's got clear playing time at either third base or first base. And they bring back Cody Bellinger. And oh, by the way, there's PCA who's knocking on the door because he had a 2030 season in the upper minors last year. Like,
Mhm.
it's fun, but it's gonna kind of decrease. It's gonna kind of decrease what we all think PCA and Morel and Bush are gonna do this year because Bellinger's clearly getting full time at bats. You're not paying him $30 million to only play part time, especially after the year he had hitting what 307 with 30
Mhm.
bombs. Um, so yeah, you got to temper your expectations on Morel and Bush and PCA, who I still expect to break camp with the team, but I don't know where he play. Like if he gets full time playing time right off the jump.
Let me ask you two questions. Cody
Yeah.
Bellinger, 26 homers, 20 stolen bases last year. Question number one: does he go 2020 again in 2024?
Yes.
Okay,
Barring an injury, yes.
correct. Then my next question here, I'm trying to think about if I want to Colby this question or if I want to just ask the question. What do you think?
Colby it. You're
Okay.
Colby.
So we know that Pittsburgh has the NL Central on lock. We know that that first place is already wrapped up. Do the Cubs need to make another move to try to solidify themselves as second place in the division behind Pittsburgh? The other way of asking this question is the NL Central is wide, you know what, open. Do the Cubs make another move after the Bellinger signing and say, this is our division? We're taking it this year. We're just going to put the best product out there. Do they need to go out and make one more move?
So who would you get? I don't know that they
Like a
needed.
Montgomery type?
I was gonna say it's got to be a pitcher, right? You don't have any more at bats to give to another bat, right?
It would be an
Your
arm. It would
your
have to
top
be.
pitchers are Justin Steele and then Shoto Imanaga,
So
and then
actually, thinking of that, could they actually go with Snell or Montgomery? Because if they leave Jordan Wicks in, and let's say they boot out Kyle Hendrick, Kyle Hendricks, you're running a starting rotation with four lefties. I don't
yeah,
think there's
I'd
anything
rather
wrong with it,
have.
but
Well, first of all, I'd rather have Montgomery than Snell. I'm just not a. You're not gonna pay Snell $30 million a year to pitch 5 innings.
fair.
I mean, you're just not gonna do that. So, um, So I would prefer. I mean, he's also got. You saw Jordan Montgomery in the division last year because remember he was with the Cardinals to start the year. Um, I I would say so, but also the Cubs have pretty decent pitching prospects they're going to
Mhm.
give. shots to. Like if Ben Brown can get his walks under control, that guy can be absolutely filthy in the back end to start at least of a major league rotation. That gives you another righty. I don't think Cade Horton is ready quite yet, but maybe in the second half, if everything goes according to plan, you could have Cade Horton up. So it wouldn't shock me if we get through May and they realize, hey, we need another arm. But I don't know that they do anything right off the jump just yet.
Fair enough. Do the Cubs take the NL Central?
Yeah, I think so. I think the swing in that division was Craig Counsell, actually,
Hmm.
and the moves he made down the stretch for the Brewers that David Ross didn't for the Cubs. I think they gave away about 6 games that probably swung that division. And I think this Cubs team is better this year than it was last year. The addition of Shoto Imanaga for one, you get another year of Cody Bellinger. You get Michael Bush added to that. I think the catching core this year is probably better between Gomes and Amaya, who probably takes over towards the end of the year. So yeah, I think the Cubs take the division. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a pure three-way race between the Reds, the Cardinals, and the Cubs.
You must have cut out there. I thought you didn't say Pirates.
I
You must
know,
have cut
like
out.
signing Mitch Keller to a $77 million offer should like give you the World Series, but no, sorry. I
Yeah.
mean,
I don't know. Your internet must have cut out because you didn't say Pirates, but I don't know.
not yet, man. They've got people coming, but not.
Maybe they slow play everyone. Who knows if they're coming? Who knows?
I mean, that's fair.
Let's move on. Let's get out of this division that Pittsburgh's going to win that you and I both agree on. You can rewind the tape and listen to it here and there. But it was mid-March last year that the Mets got bad news with their team, and that was when Edwin Diaz got hurt in the World Baseball Classic. Bad news came earlier this year with Kodai Senga is going to be shut down for approximately 3 weeks. So Matt, that's putting us into about halfway through March. Season starting shortly thereafter. He's going to get a delayed start to the season. This Mets team,
Not good.
They needed Senga because without Senga to begin the year, they're going
Quintana
to
is their ace.
yes. Hey,
That's
well,
a
hold on.
problem.
Quintana was an ace before. He was Pittsburgh's #1 pitcher for a brief moment in time. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's
about
pump the
3
brakes there.
innings of a 7-inning start, he was their ace.
Right now, per roster resource, without Senga in the starting rotation, they're running out Quintana, Severino, Manaea, Adrian Hauser, and Tyler McGill.
That is not good, Bob. That's not great.
Even with Senga in there, it's not great.
So here's my this is the amazing thing. They mentioned on I was watching the Yankees game earlier today. They were talking about why the Yankees didn't go after Snell. It's because the Yankees are one of 3 teams that are over the pay everything and luxury tax barrier, right? It's the Dodgers, obviously, the Mets, and the Yankees. Where did the Mets money go? Like, if you look at this roster, how is that a $300+ million roster? I know that part of it is they're paying the Rangers for both DeGrom and Scherzer, and they're paying the Astros for Verlander. But in all seriousness, the back half of that starting lineup isn't good either. Like, I'm not trying to crap on them because I like the Yankees and the Nats, and the Mets are rivals of both. But in all honesty, the bottom half of that Mets lineup is not good. So I don't know where all of that money went that Steve Cohen had to spend. But it's gonna be tough sailing. I don't know what the Mets do to get out of that. Obviously, Senga's not done for the year like Edwin Diaz was last year with the patellar tendon tear. But you can't if you're looking at Senga or you're looking to keep Senga, he's shut down for 3 weeks. That means he can't start warming back up till mid-March. He hasn't gotten any spring training starts. He barely got going in his, pitching, routine before spring training.
Mhm.
So he's got to start basically from square one. So you're talking it's at least a month before he's pitching for the Mets. And then you would expect the first couple of starts to not be, to be pretty limited, I would assume, right? Because he's still going to be building up to pitch counts. Just think about the first starts pitchers usually make out of spring training when they've had a full spring training. You're still only going like 75 pitches generally, right?
Mhm.
And he's not going to have anywhere close to a normal spring training. So this is rough. I also don't know where they go to get help. I mean, I know that Cohen says money, he doesn't really care about the money because he's loaded. But at some point, if you go, oh, well, they could just sign Snell. The Mets are at the same point the Yankees are, which is if you sign Snell to, let's say, $30 million a year, you owe 110% of that in luxury tax, which means Snell becomes a $63 million a year pitcher. Same with Montgomery. If you sign Montgomery for like 20 million, he becomes a $42 million a year pitcher, basically.
Mhm.
That's pretty hard to swallow from those two guys. So is rough right now. I am dropping Senga decently far in drafts. Like I didn't really like him as an ace of the Mets staff to begin with.
Mhm.
And now he's got the thing. And we also don't know how well it's going to hold up.
Right.
Do we do you trust the Mets training staff to adequately diagnose an injury at this point?
There's significant questions. I have a league where Sengo is going to be one of my keepers. I've now swapped it for Cole Reagans.
Can't blame you. That guy's
I
electric.
we'll talk about him in a little bit, but looking at the Mets I don't know actually how you pronounce this site, if it's Spotrac or Spotrac.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I've always said Spotrac.
That's what I'm going with too. I don't know why.
2024 retained salaries for the Mets. Scherzer and Verlander both over 20 mil. James McCann 8 mil and a couple pennies to Johan Ramirez. So that's where a good chunk of that money is. But
Oh
yeah,
right, and don't forget Bobby Bonilla Day.
And Brett Saberhagen still gets a little bit.
Yep.
Much less than Bonilla. But yeah, I'm dropping Senga a little bit in rankings. I was actually really looking forward to him to drafting him in TGFBI. If I'm being honest, he was an arm I liked with that draft coming up, but now he's going to have to slip a little bit for me to take him. But such is life, This is one of the things, Matt, when the idea of baseball is just so cool and people aren't getting hurt, nothing's happening, everything is all hunky dory. You have 450 healthy players to choose from. But once games start happening, that's when stuff gets a little
See,
interesting.
people talk about this is why you draft early to get values. I'm solidly in the other camp. I want to draft as late as possible so that I know as much as possible. Do we know everything? Do I know that what the Cubs are going to do with the lineup situation by the time we get to opening day? No, because it's going to evolve. But I'm going to have a much better chance to know than the day after Cody Bellinger signs, right? And if you drafted 2 months ago, you're going, hey, Cody Bellinger will be great. Let's just hope he signs. And then you're sweating like bullets to hope that he signs somewhere. Or if you're in an only league and you manage to draft Cody Bellinger, hoping that an AL team like, I don't know, Toronto signs him, and then they don't, then you lost that draft pick, right? Or if your dude gets injured, like Gavin Lux last year, or Kodai Senga this year, or whoever else may hopefully not get hurt, but it's going to happen. So I am squarely in the camp of draft as late as possible, so as much. Like you take a hit on value, but I'd rather have actionable value than hopeful value, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the spring a little bit here. Go back to what we brought out last week. A little fact or fiction here, Matt. So in Spencer Strider's first spring outing, he flashed a little curveball. We've talked about Strider, the question with him, and a little bit facetious, but how long can he survive on two very, very good pitches? We talked about it last week. I can't remember off the top of my head what pitcher it was. Hunter Green working on a curve and a splitter.
Right.
When guys like that can add in a third pitch, even if it's just average, it gives the batter something else that they have to plan
Correct.
for. So let me ask you this. You might say yes to this even without the thought of a potential curveball being added to his pitch mix. Does Spencer Strider break the 280 strikeout threshold for the second straight season?
Yeah. I,
Do you think he gets a 300?
he got awfully close last year, didn't he?
I want to say it's 281, 283, or 285. It's an odd number.
Yeah.
281.
He was within what, 1.5 starts of doing that last year. I think he came out a little early a few times because he got hit around pretty decently there in the second half. People started to hit him. I think he gets over 280. Getting to 300, it's a little tougher to see. Maybe I don't know. I'll say he gets close to 300, but not over 300. Um, Still hoping the ratios don't get quite as high as we think they will. I
Mhm.
think he's kind of a mid threes ERA guy, which is okay with a lot of strikeouts, but if it goes much higher than that, you're gonna have a problem getting value.
Fun fact: do you know the number of strikeouts that he had in a start that was his fewest in an outing last year? Number of strikeouts?
I'm gonna say 8.
Oh no, he had one start with 3.
Oh, one start with 3. How about
It
that?
was against Pittsburgh. Shout out. Do you know what his next lowest one was? It was 4 against the Nationals. Look at us go. Look at us beating Spencer Strider.
Hey man,
That's what it's about, this
You know what?
podcast.
The Nats didn't really strike out that much last year.
Yeah,
Like,
same with Pittsburgh.
I mean, they didn't score a lot, but they also didn't strike out a lot.
Also, same with Pittsburgh. We're in
Yeah.
the same boat here. All right, this one we're going to project a little bit. We're going to go to your prospect pedigree for this one. You saw on Twitter or X, excuse me, Spencer Jones, mammoth home run.
Yes.
The power's there. A lot to like about his offensive profile. So this is a little bit of a kind of a two-part. It's not all about Spencer Jones, but Matt,
Yes.
on opening day in 2025. Aaron Jones, Juan Soto, and Spencer Jones. Aaron Judge. Did I say Aaron Jones?
Yes. Not the running back for the Packers.
Aaron Judge,
Yes.
Spencer Jones, and Juan Soto are the 3 outfielders in the New York Yankees opening day lineup in 2025.
False.
Ooh, okay. Technically, let me just throw a caveat. Technically, if Judge DHs for some reason, we're still going to count it. Those 3 are in the opening day lineup. Maybe that's the better way of wording it.
I'm still saying false.
Okay, how about by September 1st
Of this year,
of 2025?
still saying false.
Okay.
I don't think Soto's resigning.
Oh, so it's Soto, not Jones.
No, Jones would be there unless
Okay.
we trade him for an arm, but Jones would be there. I don't think it's Soto.
Interesting.
I have had a theory for a couple of years now on this, but
Is Soto going back to somewhere where he previously donned that jersey,
I think Soto goes back to the Nats. I really do.
where he
It's
got a
not.
little hardware?
It's. I mean, call it Homer bias, sure, but the Nats clearly were interested. They offered him the 2 largest contracts in the history of baseball.
Mhm.
The ownership group has added value since then, and I think that before he was traded, Mike Rizzo and Juan Soto made kind of a backroom deal. And there's some quotes from Soto when he went back to the Nats a couple of times playing the Padres that back this up. I think that Rizzo said, "Let us trade you now for a haul, build the team up, and then in a couple of years, you can come be the star of the opening window, right? Because by that point, Gore and Gray will have a few years under their belt. CJ Abrams has already set himself up. Keber Ruiz is there, fixed. You'll have
Joey
Dylan
Gallo.
Cruz.
Yeah.
You'll have Dylan Cruz up. You'll have
Joey
James
Gallo.
Wood up. You'll have, I'm just ignoring you at this point. Maybe Robert Hassel III up or Lane Thomas, either one. But you have Brady House could be up, right? So you have the pieces there to open the window, and then it's not barren. Like I'm just gonna hang out here for a loser for 2 years. So I think, and the Yankees, by the way, have said we don't want to have discussions with him because it'll be a distraction. I'm not sure the Yankees think they can afford him,
Potentially.
which is interesting, but they don't. I mean, they signed a bunch of dudes to some long term deals. I'm not sure they have the cash to go extend Soto for what he's going to command.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's why
Not
we
to
play this
mention the
fun game.
Patrick Corbin money falls off. The deferred money from Scherzer starts to fall off. We can at that point get out of the money for Steven Strasburg, hopefully. And so it's a more open payroll for the Nats after this year. So we'll see.
Hey, fair enough. I like it. All right. Let me.
Yeah, that was a tangent we didn't expect to go.
No, not at all. I did not, but I love it. So
I've had
hey,
this reason now for about 2.5 years. That's why it's
hey, fair enough. We'll have plenty of clips to cut if that ends up happening. We'll have a whole montage of you talking about it. But last one I got here for you, Matt, for fact or fiction from the early spring headlines. Cole Reagans needed just 19 pitches to strike out 5 batters in his first spring start. So my question to you is going to be, will Cole Reagan strike out more than 175 batters this season? And let me tell you, just because I want to help you out here, over his 12 starts with the Royals, he was on pace for 252 strikeouts over 34 starts. And I'm just setting the line at 175.
yeah, I'm gonna go over.
Does Cole Reagans finish top 5 in Cy Young voting?
Yeah.
I like that one too.
Yeah, I think so. And for those of you going, well, the Royals suck. Okay, Greinke won the Cy Young with the Royals and set at that point the fewest win record for winning the Cy Young. And then it got broken by Felix Hernandez on a terrible Mariners roster. Not saying Cole Reagans wins the Cy Young, but can he be a contender? Yeah. I mean, Kodai Senga finished top 5 in Cy Young voting last year in the National League, and the Mets didn't sniff the playoffs, and he only had a good half of a season. So yeah, I think Reagans can finish top 5.
Reagan's, I'm looking over at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Just the first one I pulled up. American League pitchers ahead of him in the Cy Young voting: Garrett Cole, Kevin Gausman, Framber Valdez, Corbin Burns, Pablo Lopez, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Tarek Skubal, Logan Gilbert, Dylan Cease, and then Cole Reagans at plus 2,800. I'd throw a little change on March 11th when I can legally bet here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I'd sprinkle a little dough on Cole Reagans plus 2,800 to win the American League Cy Young.
Yeah,
There's a path. There's a path.
There is a path.
There's a better path than Dylan Cease winning it. I know you and I are also both down on him, so we're also kind of a little jaded. But yeah. I mean, there's a path easily.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a better bet he finishes top 5. But there's a path if he pitches out of his absolute mind for a year, and Bobby Witt somehow helps the Royals get to a winning record. I think there's a path for him to be considered the most dominant and effective pitcher in the American League.
Plus 4,000 to lead Major League Baseball in strikeouts. I just don't think he's gonna have enough volume. He only threw about 90 some innings last year. I just don't think he can. I don't think he'll get a full 170, 180 innings. So
no, probably not.
That'll probably do him in.
Spencer Strider out there.
You know, it's really interesting. Just looking at this quick. This is a tangent. I don't want to go too deep down because of time, but Yuri Perez is tied. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yuri Perez is tied for 5th to lead Major League in strikeouts. I don't know if he's has enough volume to get there either.
Yeah, I mean, they shut him down after 120 innings last year? Maybe?
That sounds about right. Let's pull it up here. Yuri Perez, regular season 2023, he logged 91 1/3 with the Marlins. and 36 and 2/3 in the minors.
So
So
127?
128, 127, then 3/3, 128. So say a third, and he's so young, they're probably not going to want to push him past a 30 innings jump. So,
So 150?
yeah, okay. So then it comes down to this health aside, everyone stays healthy. I can't see Yuri Perez striking out more in 150 that Spencer Strider will in 175.
Correct.
So that one's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, that's what we should do. We should just do a whole segment of just looking at odds and just saying why we don't like it and why we like it. But
I
that's
mean,
for another time.
there is a correlation. We should do this podcast though, but there is a correlation between looking at odds and ADP and fantasy value and where they think guys will fall in certain categories.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of see, okay, if this guy's fourth best to lead Major League Baseball in strikeouts, and he's projected for this, and his ADP is this, there's value here because if he hits that fourth best number, and you got him as the, I don't know, 15th starter off the board, you've got value.
Absolutely. Matt, those who subscribe all pro at fantasyalarm.com obviously get access into our Discord, get to talk with all of the Fantasy Alarm family directly. So, of course, in this week's Discourse from the Discord, we have I'll call it a strategy question or a strategic question in fantasy baseball. And I think it's kind of to each their own with this question. So I'll let you go first. But we've been seeing pitchers go less deep into games, or at least the majority of them aren't. So the question that we got in our Discord was, is it worth prioritizing the big name studs early in drafts or just waiting later around with value because pitchers simply aren't going as deep into games? So the other way of wording this question is, how do you approach drafting pitchers, especially at the top of the draft?
So that's an excellent question. I will lead this off with, how many pitchers do you think went 200 innings or more last year in Major League Baseball?
I'll say 7.
Little less. We have 5. We have Bassett at 200 even. Michaelis at 201 and a third. Garrett Cole at 209. Okay. Gallen at 210, and Logan Webb with 216.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had another handful. Yeah, basically, if we count 189, 2 is 190. You had basically 16 guys go 190 innings last year. So my strategy for the last several years, because this has been a trend we've seen for a while now, has been this. I want a top 9 pitcher. Okay, what does top 9 mean? It generally means it's going to be a workhorse. They're going to pile up innings. They're going to be good in wins because they're going to be a team ace, right? Going to get you a good strikeout total because, again, they're an ace. Generally, your frontline starter is striking out a bunch of dudes. And they're going to be solid in the ratios. Why top 9? Because those tend to be the guys that go 190, 195 innings or more. Okay, that's my base. After that, I look for the values that I like, that get a decent amount of innings, have good strikeouts, good ratios, don't have to be, innings. There's not very many innings eating guys anymore, but it's kind of like, we started this podcast off this year with transitioning from fantasy football to fantasy baseball. If we go back to fantasy football, if you're in the first round, you want a stud guy that's going to give you a base, either running back or wide receiver, right? Generally speaking, running backs is a pretty good comp to this. Not that many 3-down stud running backs. So you want one of those guys, and then after that, you'll take a shot on a guy who you think can get a shot, right? For pitchers, that's what I do. I try to get one guy at the top of the draft, first few rounds or at the top of an auction, that can anchor my team. If they get injured, okay. Didn't see that coming, whatnot. But I get one guy who can eat the innings and give me, obviously, 4 of the 5 pitching categories or as many points as possible. And then I take shots on value later on. Is that how you tend to look at things?
No.
No, you go the other way. You want
I mean, this is the point of the question, though. Like, I truly think it's a teach their own. It's how you like your builds. And to your point, and there's two sides of this coin. You want to get, you mentioned it to the running backs. You want those 3 down guys. What I find most of the elite starting pitchers, and it's really no fault of their own. It's just because they're so damn good. They're priced up at a point where there's hitters I like more, and there's guys that I just tend to like more. So what I try to do instead of that SP1, I'll try to grab 2 SP2s or 2 SP3s and hope I can find an SP1 from there. Basically, in a perfect world, I can find an SP1 and an SP2 at an SP2 and an SP3 price. That's what I'm trying to do. So I don't have much Strider. I don't like Corbin Burns at his draft price. I don't have much Garrett Cole. I just don't like drafting the top end elite arm. So when I'm like looking down at the board, like I hate to call it waiting, but because I mean, Luis Castillo is still a top option, but like, honestly, I don't really start looking at starting pitchers until I probably have 3 or 4 hitters at least. And by then we're easily past 12, 15 pitchers at that point, probably. So that's how I target it. Like, and I love taking chances in the draft with upside guys with
Yeah,
the
I mean,
arms.
I guess I have a different view because my view is I can find a bat just about anywhere,
Mhm.
right? Like, obviously, there are dudes at the top of the first round that are there for a reason. Acuna, Tatis, like 5 category, absolute studs, whatnot. But once you get to about the 3rd round, which is where some of these top pitchers are going, I can make up stats in aggregate among bats, right? Everybody goes, oh, I want a 20 homer hitter. There was like 150 dudes that hit 20 home runs last year. I don't know. I didn't look it up. Don't quote me on that. But there's power is everywhere,
Mhm.
right? Speed is coming in. There was a 43% increase in stolen bases last year, thanks to the new rules and pitch clock and whatnot. But I feel like that because batting average hasn't mattered quite as much, I can take dudes that give me those 20 homers or 15 steals
Mhm.
or whatever later in a draft that may not have the 280 average. They may only have a 255 average.
Mhm.
And I'll take the arm because if I get the innings out of that guy, that's something other people won't because of the proclivity for starters to get injured. Right. So that's kind of my thought process is that I think bats are deeper than arms. And if you trust your process that you can find SP1s and SP2s at SP2 and SP3 prices, go for it. It really comes down to what you're comfortable doing.
Mhm.
I've had success doing I'm going to find a top starter and then the rest of the guys I'm going to cobble together. And then I'll just get. Now, does that mean that I get as many elite bats as other guys? No. Mainly I'm playing in auctions. I like auction fantasy baseball a little more than Snake, but I've played Snake. It means that I'm sacrificing an elite bat for an elite arm. But I think that the elite arm gets you more. It's a positional advantage compared
Mhm.
to an elite bat, right? That's kind of my viewpoint.
Here's, I think, what the best thing to do is in this situation, and this is not
It's mock.
exactly,
Yes.
and test it.
Test it.
Start off with Strider. Start off with Garrett Cole. Then try waiting, and maybe you go hitter, 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 and then you come in and you run it with looking at 2 guys at similar ADP, like Yuri Perez and Jesus Luzardo as your 1 and 2. See how that build comes out. Like that's what it comes down to. Test it all. Like I'm doing the best ball drafts on underdog. I've liked the builds where I have not taken a pitcher early. That's just
Right.
and at some point in every fantasy sports season, you are going to come to this point where you have a hill that you're willing to die on.
Right.
That's what it's going to come down to. Like you have your what some people call like your flag plant guy.
Yeah, you're
Like
gonna plant
that's
your flag. Yeah.
yeah, like that's what you're doing. And you have a notion. And like right now, through the drafts I've done, I'm getting ready to basically say I'm not touching the top 8 pitchers just because I want bats early. And I trust that once we get outside of pick 150, 175, that I've identified arms that I think are going to exceed value. That's going to be my flag plant. And if those guys are great, like it was with Justin Steele last year, awesome.
Correct.
I'm going to be great. And if it's wrong, I went all in and I look at the process. What did I miss? Did I overvalue something? Did I not look at something? Like that's the whole thing. At the end of the year, we'll go back and do a report card. We're going to look at our sleepers and busts. We're not going to get everything right. Corbin Burns could go out there, win the Cy Young, and strike out 300 guys, and I had him as a bust candidate. That's just part of the game. You look at the numbers and you make your decision. So I would say mock, test the builds, see which ones you like best for the 2024 season.
I'm also a guy that, by the way, does not pay prices on closers. I will wait on a closer.
Yeah.
Like I just don't. So if this is part of that question, I avoid closers. I go find holds and saves later because you don't ever have to finish first in saves to win a league. You can do it by finishing middle of the road, which if you get two dudes who get like 12, 13 saves, you're perfectly fine in that category.
I will draft 2 closers in the top 12, neither of which are going to be any of the top 5 guys, because I'm going to wait and probably double tap somewhere in that top 10, but towards the back half of it. And then I'll be drafting a particular San Diego reliever at the back end of every single draft, because that's the hill. That's another hill I'm dying on this year, but we don't have to talk about Yuki Matsui anymore and his dominant first spring outing, but we'll come back to that. But Matt, this week we're going to wrap up this episode with the AL East division preview and challenge. So, of course, in the American League East, catcher, infielder, outfielder, starter, reliever from the same division, no more than 1 player per team, no more than 1 player at the position going off NFBC positional eligibility to begin the year, standard ESPN scoring. Players' ADP must be outside the top 175 except for catcher. Anything goes there. Matt, we both agreed in the AL East it'd be super easy just to slide in Adley Rutschman, but we both had a gentleman's agreement that we won't do it.
Correct.
After I went with Will Smith last week. So we had a gentleman's agreement, no Adley this week. So let's snake draft it. Matt, your American League East catcher.
So there was a couple of guys that I liked. It's fairly barren in this division if you don't go with Adley Rutschman, which I don't think either of us really had taken into account. But I'm going to start off by knocking off the Yankees here. I'm going to go with Austin Wells. I think the batting average is pretty reasonable there in about the 250 range from him. Not elite pop, right? We're talking maybe 12, 15 homers this year. But I do like the lineup around him. He should get, things to hit no matter where he is in that lineup. So that's who I'm starting with. He's going outside the top 175 since January 1st in general.
That was the one catcher I was looking at as well. I ended up settling in on Connor Wong. You got to draft a catcher. I am. You got to draft a catcher from this division. I mean, if we look at the positives, 9 homers and 8 steals last year, actually showcased a 76th percentile sprint speed. So if I get some steals from the catcher, I'll take that. He's got a little bit of an underwhelming offensive profile, though. Like when you go to StatCast, you see a lot of blue and not a lot of red, which is not very good. There are some issues in that he has I'm going to call it the imperfect storm of he'll leave the zone a lot. He will whiff a lot. He strikes out a lot. And at least last year refused to walk. So there's a lot of potential risk with his offensive profile. But I mean, hey, over the course of a full season, maybe he can run into enough balls, catch a hot streak here and there. Hope for 10-10 out of my catcher. 10 homers, 10 stolen bases.
10 stolen bases out of a catcher isn't terrible. No. I also thought about Alejandro Kirk.
Yep.
Not ready to give up on him yet. The tools are there for him to be better than he is. And you have a decent batting average when you have Alejandro Kirk.
Fair enough.
Which doesn't kill you from a catcher.
We'll go ahead and snake this. Infield, I'm going with Justin Turner, the old man veteran, but he's going to hit in the middle of a very, very good Toronto lineup. And he's not really slowing down. He continues to handle the plate well. Solid strikeout rate. The walk rate has remained quite good. The batted ball profile, right on par with years past. Did have a slight drop in his barrel rate last year, so something to watch in the beginning part of the season. But regardless,
the entire Toronto offense had a drop in their barrel rate last year.
That's true. But I mean, even last year, first year in Boston away from LA, still had 23 homers, 96 RBIs, and a 276 average. I could do worse than Justin Turner, and he's outside that top 175. So that's going to be my infielder.
That's not terrible. I'm gonna go with a guy who people seem split on here, which I know is kind of a risk here at infield. But I'm going with Ryan Mountcastle, knocking off the Orioles here. I still think there's enough pop here for him to hit 22 to 25 home runs. I think he'll get enough playing time between DH and first base that he will be a near everyday player. I know that down the stretch, he did not see right handed pitching very much, but I'm not sure that that's indicative of what's to come. He did have a bout with vertigo, which, kind of took him out for a little bit last year. I think he's over that. And look, the lineup around him is solid, right? Obviously, they won 101 games last year. They're adding potentially Jackson Holiday. They're full year of Gunnar Henderson here. Um, I, Look, it's too hard at this point to turn down a 25 homer bat at infield with a pretty solid batting average going where he's going, which I think, if I remember correctly, is outside the top 225 in ADP. So
I
neither
like
one of
it.
us are Jackson Holiday, who, by the way, you could have fit in
Mhm.
here. Just a little too risky to bank on a rookie.
Well,
Uh,
and in this format too, I mean, think about it. We always talk about be careful drafting rookies. You could take a zero. You're taking a literal zero here.
right,
At
because
least
he's
in your
not
fantasy baseball, is you can
guaranteed.
put someone else in. There's no swap. There's no additions. This
Right,
is best ball with 5 players, and you only got one player at each position.
yeah,
So that'd be a legit zero.
and he's not guaranteed an opening day roster. I mean, the presumption is he has one, but who knows?
Yep.
So we're snaking it. So I'm going outfield.
Yep.
I'm going Toronto for this outfielder, guy who used to qualify multiple spots but doesn't anymore. I'm going to go with Dalton Varsho.
Fair.
Like, I know he got a lot of crap, right? But he's still like a 20 homer, 15 steal bat in the middle of a pretty solid offense that we're all hoping rebounds this year. So I don't necessarily have a problem with this. This goes with what I was just talking about with the pitching. I can find 20 homer, 15 steal bats deep in drafts. Dalton Varsho is one of them. Do I take a little bit of a hit on the batting average? Yeah, you do. And there's a reason why, had he had catcher qualification, he'd be way higher in the draft, because a 20 homer, 15 steal bat is like JT Realmuto, right?
Mhm.
In outfield, it's ho hum. Okay, I don't care. We're deep into the draft here. I'll take a ho hum outfielder who gives me counting stats across the board. Why not? I'll go Dalton Varsho.
And I'll take an outfielder who's missed nearly 35% of the team's regular season games over
Outstanding.
over the last 2 years, talking about just taking a literal zero. But I'm going to go Giancarlo Stanton. Here's the thing. He's going to miss time at this point. We almost have to bake it in. But honestly,
But
when you look at
he's
his
so
ADP,
slim this year.
well, believe me, I listen. There's an article coming out in the Fantasy Baseball Draft Guide on the site, and I talk about how a slimmer Stanton could be intriguing for
Yes.
2024. It's mainly the price. Everyone knows he's going to serve an IL stint at some point. It almost
Yes.
seems baked in, but he still hit 24 or more homers in 3 straight seasons, and last year 94th percentile or better in terms of average exit velocity and barrel rate. And we all know that his top end max exit velocity is elite. So honestly, at this point, I'm just taking a chance, hoping that he can stay healthy. Because if he does, I will be just fine. And he's actually going outside the top 250, which is just
Yeah,
just too cheap.
I was shocked when I
Mhm.
saw I messaged Colby. I was like, there is a guaranteed outfielder that we can
Yep.
take in this division. He's going like 270.
It's
Like,
late. It's too
by
late.
the way, if he puts up the stat line that Judge put up last year in 100 games, that's elite value, because Judge hit 30 homers in 100 games last year.
Here's a little snippet from the article that you'll see sometime this week for in the Fantasy Baseball Draft Guide, talking about late round ADP targets. But despite the injuries that have cost Stanton nearly 35% of the team's regular season games over the last 2 years, if you take his numbers from the 2022 and 2023 seasons, his 162 game average is 42 home runs and 106 RBI.
Yeah. Why is he going at 270? So
He's going to get injured. It's baked in at the price at this point. He is well worth
We
the
we
pick
almost
there.
we almost agreed to put him in the lineup, and then we just vote on the other 4 people. But I wanted to be different to give you all more. So I may take an L because I don't have Stanton in my lineup, but we'll see.
Fair enough. I'll go the pitcher. You might want to say Ryan Pepio, but it's Ryan Pepiot. That is how you say it. I know that. I know he has a very good ERA. The FIP is very high. The strand rate is going to regress. I know that's going to happen, but he's a fastball changeup guy. His slider took a big step forward in 2023, and I will leave it at this. If the Rays can turn Aaron Savale into a strikeout machine, I'm all in on what they can do with Ryan Pepiot, who has arguably better stuff to work with. So Ryan Pepiot's going to be the starter for me. I can't stop drafting him this year. I don't know how else to say it. So that's my starter.
There's a reason why the Rays took him over, in replacing Tyler Glasnow. They like his stuff.
Yep.
So for my starter, I'm going to go up to Boston here, and we're going to go with Brian Bello, the lefty starter from Boston. I had him last year in one of my leagues. Loved the upside. Everything I've heard this offseason, he's working hard on his stuff. He's working with Pedro Martinez, which can't be a bad thing, right? Like, you're going to go work with former starter because Bello is, a little slighter of frame. Who else do you want to work with for a smaller guy than Pedro Martinez, who, oh, by the way, used to pitch on that same mound? Strikeout rate, pretty nice. There's some questions about ratios. He's going to have to work on that a little bit. Innings might be a little bit capped, but I'll take it at this point because I don't need him to be an SP2. Taking him as an SP4 is just fine. And for reliever, I only have one team left. It's Tampa. I'm going with Jason Adam. I know he's not the locked-in closer that's Pete Fairbanks, but they also like to rotate through dudes, and Tampa pitchers get hurt. So I'm going to go with Jason Adam, who should get like 10, 11 saves and should get a bunch of holds too. So I'm taking Jason Adam, who's going way deep in drafts.
I will take your template there for that, and I will go. I only have one team left, and it's Baltimore, and I'm going with Yennier Cano, and I know he's not the locked-in closer, but
Mr. Man Bun, Craig Kimbrell.
If Craig Kimbrell flounders at all, Felix Bautista's out for a good chunk of this year with the arm injury. Cano could step in. At the very least, he's one of the best eighth-inning guys in baseball for a team that should probably win a lot of games. So holds will be there, and because we're using ESPN standard scoring, holds do count as points.
Correct.
So we are both in agreement there. And I would like to see Cano strike out a little bit more or have like a little bit of a higher strikeout rate. But honestly, if he does what he did last year, I'm just fine with what I'm getting for here in terms of my reliever here outside of that. So that'll do it for the AL East. Matt, you're with Austin Wells, Ryan Mountcastle, Dalton Varsho, Brian Bello, Jason Adam. I got Connor Wong, Justin Turner, Giancarlo Stanton, Ryan Pepiot, and Yennier Cano. If you are an all-pro subscriber in the Discord, drop your lineups in there, compete against Matt and I all season long, or head over to X and I'll have a post at Colby R. Conway. You can, get your vote in between the two of us in these Adley, Rutschman-less lineups, and any Adley lineup's going to beat us. That's just how it's going to be. And also, you can drop your lineups there, and we'll keep track of it all season long and let you know who is winning in each of these divisions. But Matt, next week we'll move to the AL Central, which I'm sure is going to be a fun one in its own regards, just like each one of these has been. So that'll be quite interesting.
Rankins is off the table, so that's going to cause a problem for you.
It sure is. But make sure you head over to fantasyalarm.com, get your hands on the fantasy baseball draft guide, and become an all-pro subscriber today. Get access to the Discord and ask all of us your questions in there. Like and subscribe everything here at the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. For Matt Selz at the Selzman on X, I am Colby Conway at Colby R. Conway over on X as well. And we will see you next week with the newest episode of Caught Stealing.